So one of my topics recently was on Nearpod, which is one of the ways that you can make interactive presentations that you can show in your class. So these are presentations much like slideshows that we've used, such as Keynote and Google presentations and all that sort of stuff, except that you're taking it to a next level. You're taking it to the point that kids are actually paying attention and they're responding as you present. So it's a pretty cool tool. For today's session, I'm going to walk you guys through how I would do a live session with my students, which will show you all the interactive features that you have within Nearpod. I'm going to be using my own iPad, which I'll show you what the student screen looks like, and then you'll see the teacher screen. Now, as we're going through this presentation, the screen that you'll see that's being recorded is actually the screen that the teachers would see on their computer. You would not be presenting this through a projector like you're normally presenting. And that's one of the nice things about Nearpod is that we don't have the need for a projector, LCD projector anymore. We're putting the presentation right on the kid's device. So if you have students that are hard of vision, or if you have projector issues where maybe you can't see the screen all that well, then this puts it right on their own device and keeps them engaged. So I'm looking at doing this Nearpod that you see on your screen called Meet Nearpod. Now looking at this teacher's view, along the bottom you see a preview of all the different slides that we're going to be going through in this presentation. And under the paid versions or during the trial period of your own account, you do have the option to either do a live session or a homework session. We'll talk about during the presentation what the difference is, but I'm going to do a live session today. When I start up a live session as a teacher, now using the iPad app, the student would start up the app on their iPad or go to nearpod.com, and then in the join a session box, you can see it, I'm going to type in the code that you see on your screen. It is not case sensitive, so you can just type it in and then hit go. And then from the student side, it connects like such. And now I see the presentation on the student device that the teacher is seeing on their side. Now that code that you just saw on the screen will change each time that you present, and I would recommend that you just write it on the board in order to get your students to join in, again, so that way you don't have to actually use the projector. So for this instance, what I see on the student screen and what I see on the teacher screen is exactly the same. And that's because we're not asking them any questions or looking for engagement. So I'll show you the student screen again when we actually work on the engagement questions. So now from a teacher's perspective, my controls are all done right on my device. I can scroll through here as well as see a preview at the bottom of what the different slides are. So as I already mentioned, Nearpod is basically a way of increasing engagement within your interactive presentations and then assessing them along the way, and you'll be able to get the assessment reports through a PDF under the free account or as a downloadable CSV file under the paid accounts. It's available on iOS, Android devices, as well as the web. So if you're a BYOD school or classroom, or if you have kids who don't have the laptop provided by the school, then this gives them a way to participate without actually needing to have the laptop itself. Now the nice thing is, from the teacher side, once I click next, it'll take a little bit, but you'll notice that my student screen has changed, and on this screen as a student I'm being asked to register. And if you have students who do not use appropriate names when they are given the option of registering like I just was, then you can obviously have that conversation about appropriateness. Now you'll see on my screen as the teacher that my class list, my student list, just changed to reflect my own registration on my iPad device. Once I've seen that every kid has registered or changed their name, then I can scroll on, and again, as I change the presenter screen, then the student screen changes as well. So the Nearpod live sessions, which is what I'm recording right now, is basically a synchronized done within a live session within your classroom. All the kids are viewing it at the same time. You're asking the questions at the same time. It's all done synchronized. The Nearpod homework side is free during your trial period, but then after that you do have to pay for it underneath their paid accounts, I believe. So if the Nearpod homework session appeals to you, then talk to me about your validation for why it would be useful for you, and then maybe we can make something happen. But basically, the Nearpod homework assignment opens up the Nearpod for kids to be doing at their own pace, wherever that they'd like to do it. So if you have kids who are absent, then they can do it at home still and still get the information that you gave out. Of course, they don't have the audio involved with it, so if you actually talk during your presentations, then that's another problem altogether. You can also use it in flipped classroom environments, so if you want all your kids to see a presentation at home and then come into class and do the actual projects and the demonstrating their knowledge in class, then the Nearpod homework sessions would work for that. And then I did have teachers at the middle school who were looking at doing this during class time, so that way they could work with more small groups and still get content out to the rest of the class. So I think both have really valid reasons for using them. When you're just starting out, use the Nearpod live sessions, and then if you have a valid reason for why you need the Nearpod homework, just talk to me. It is a little bit of an expensive account, but we'll talk about it towards the end of this presentation.
Getting started with your Nearpod experience. Launch the Nearpod app from the instructor's device and sign in using your Nearpod username and password. From the My Library page, select a presentation and tap on the Launch button to start it.
So I'm not going to go through the entire presentation here, but you'll notice that the student sees the video just like you do, and at this point I would encourage your students to have their own headphones so that way they can control their own audio during the video sessions. This is useful if you are looking at doing the Nearpod homework assignments, because it does mean that they can watch it at home. You can use it during the live sessions like I'm doing right now, but obviously what they see on their device during the video is going to be different than what you see on your device because you're not actually projecting it, so it's done at their own pace. What's nice about that is that if they need further clarification or if they missed a part, then they can always rewind it and then go back and watch it again. The interactive presentations through Nearpod do have a lot of features that I haven't seen in other tools before. They include tools like this one, which is the ability to draw. So from a teacher's perspective, it's a little bit easier with an iPad, but if you're using a laptop, then you could just use a mouse or your touchpad to draw whatever that you felt like drawing on your screen. And then when you're done, the students would hit send, and I would be sending my presentation or my drawing over to you, which as you can see from a teacher's side, this would be my drawing. Very high class, I know. Now, if I wanted to share this drawing, say it was a math problem that my students were doing and I wanted everyone else in the class to see it, then I could expand the view and then click on share. And then from a student side, I'd actually see the image blowing up bigger on my device. So if you wanted to provide some constructive feedback to the students, then you could do it that way and then just hit unshare to bring it back onto your own device and unshare it off of the students. Okay, so the other, you can do stuff like this. It's really fun. So again, pushing it out onto the student device. Now you also have the ability to ask them polling questions. So this doesn't look like it makes very much sense, but then from the student side I actually do have the question and the choices that I can select. So I could choose an answer, hit submit, and then my poll response would be fed right to the teacher's device. And this is why it's useful for the teacher to not have their screen projected, because this way you can actually gauge what the responses are. For something like a poll where it's informal, this might give them an opportunity. For example, what is your level of understanding? Are you struggling? Do you get it? Do you feel like you're an expert? And then they can answer the question on their device, and then this would give you an idea as to whether you should move on or not. In terms of other features that they have, we just did a poll and we've done the draw it feature. There are also quizzes, videos, the ability to share web pages right within your presentation, which means that you can keep your students from browsing onto other sites. It's all right within their presentation. They don't have to type in the actual address or click on a link. Can also do slideshows, so if you're sharing a series of images, this gives them the ability to scroll through the images at their own pace. Audio, and then we've already talked about the homework sessions. The reports that you get underneath the free account are a PDF, not a CSV file. You do have to have the paid account in order to get the CSV, but the PDF files for reports are very, very useful. They give you a lot of great graphs like you see across the bottom, so it will really help you gauge understanding and then get feedback for making your Nearpod better the next time. The Nearpod store itself is free with every account, and when you are logged into your Nearpod account, which you can create by linking it to your Google account, which makes it really handy, when you've logged in, then up at the top of the screen you're going to have access to the store. And within the store you're going to find a lot of Nearpods. Some of them are free, some of them you do have to pay for. But for example, under Nearpod lessons, when I click on that link, these are all free lessons that are put out by Nearpod and other highly regarded sources. So for example, if I was doing a presentation today on Shakespeare insults, then I could pull this up. When I click on the actual Nearpod, I get a preview across the bottom of what the presentation is actually going to be like. And then if I wanted it in my account, I could click on free and it will download it into my account, and you'll notice that the screen itself will blink a little bit once it's actually hit my account like it just did. The other Nearpods that I've seen that are not free cost as much as $2.99. I haven't found any ones that are more than that, and some people might question whether it's really valuable for them to pay money for materials like this. But conversely, if you're looking at doing, for example, if you wanted a presentation on adding mixed numbers by creating equivalent fractions, this one's from Learn Zillion, so it's probably a pretty good presentation. And I can click through on the bottom and see what they're actually going to be talking about. And for my money, $3 is pretty cheap. So you can always use this for part of your district reimbursement if you'd like to. Just file for that. $3 will save you a lot of time than having to create this presentation yourself. And it also gives you a good way of gauging student feedback in terms of the tool and whether their engagement goes up. And if it does, then $3 is really worth it in my mind. So check out what they have in their store. Do use the search glass up in the upper right hand corner. You can search by level, publisher, subject, as well as price, and you can also type in the title or whatever keywords that you're looking for up at the top, such as Romeo from Romeo and Juliet. So the Nearpod store itself is a really great way to get started with minimal effort from you. This from the teacher screen doesn't look like much. But if you look at the student screen, it actually is pushing out a website onto their device. So at this point, from a student's perspective, I still have full control over it. I can still click on links and interact with it, but I don't have to type in the URL at all. It just happens. It just comes onto my computer. And when for example, if I wanted my students to be researching something, then they could use their device to research something. Then I could use the next screen, for example, to do a quiz or to gauge some sort of feedback based on the content that they were just researching. And then when the time was up in terms of how much time I wanted them to research, from the teacher's side, if you watch the student device, I just press the next arrow and then it flips onto the next screen. So it's really easy to use from the student's perspective. It gives me all the content that I need without having to really do much on my end. And it can really help boost engagement. Instead of just having your students sit back and watch a presentation and maybe they answer a question when you raise your hand and maybe they don't, this can really help. So if you're interested in actually creating your own Nearpods, Nearpod itself can import files off of your computer or out of your Google Drive. If you go back to your home screen once you've created an account, then you can hit create. Now the one downside to using Nearpod is that it does not take in any sort of slide animations that you have. So if you've done a keynote before, then you're not going to be able to use the animations that you already have on that slide. It's going to be a straight no animation text file. So I pulled up this presentation that I've done for a previous topic of the week. And when I come into doing the editing, I basically added these files from my Microsoft PowerPoint app, and you'll see that they are just, as I said, they're just straight up images. There's no animation on them at all. You can add in anything that's in PDF format into here as well. So if you use Keynote, PowerPoint, Google Presentation, any of those, all of those can be added in. Just again, keep in mind that you're going to lose any sort of animation or sound that you have on these slides already. If you wanted to add content within a presentation, then you would just hit the add button, and then you can either add content, and there's a wide range of content options as I've noted across the bottom. You can also add web content, which is a paid feature. You wouldn't have it underneath the free account, but if you wanted this kind of feature, then do make sure that you're in communication with me so that way I know that it'd be valuable for you. You can also add activities, and these four activity types, open-ended question, a poll, a quiz, and draw it, are all really great ways to get your kids to actually interact with your presentation. Now, I had a teacher at the high school who was really not a fan of losing his animations that he had for his presentation, and I just did a blog post about it on simmonsclassroom.com, but basically my suggestion is that you really examine how valuable those animations are going to be. If you have a lot of content on your slides and you're trying to use animations to block the students from seeing everything at once, then perhaps you take that animation, you split it up into multiple slides instead, and that way your presentation will wind up being longer, but you'll still get the same content out there and you won't have to worry about losing the animations like your main concern. And in the end, the interactivity that you're going to gauge out of doing something like a Nearpod is going to be greater than if you were just doing something like a keynote where the kids aren't able to interact with it and you aren't able to do things like the homework feature. So keep that all in mind. It's a balance. What are you gaining and what are you losing? And if you're losing more than you're gaining, then maybe this tool isn't for you. But if you're going to gain more than you'll lose, then maybe you should check it out. Once I've done a Nearpod, then you can access your report section that will actually give you the data in terms of how the Nearpod has gone. So it's all sorted by Nearpod category. And then I can come in and click on the report, and it will give me all the information here. And then I can also download it as a PDF or a CSV file. And then the last part that I did want to talk about is the upgrade. Now, I'm not a fan of spending a lot of money on a tool that does have a free function. And this tool, I'll be honest, is an investment. But as I've said, if you are interested in Nearpod in your classroom and you have a justifiable reason for why you shouldn't have just the free version, talk to me and I'll see what I can do. But the free version, or the silver level as they've mentioned, basically you have a lot more limited storage, your presentations can't be quite as long, and then you can't have as many students in a live session as you could otherwise. They also do not have the homework sessions that I've talked about, those self-paced presentations, which in my mind would probably be the one reason why I'd want to upgrade my account. And then the support is pretty basic. If you are interested in stuff like the Nearpod homework, or if you're realizing that you need some of these extended features such as slideshows, web pages, or audio slides, then as I've said before, please just make sure that you're in communication with me and we'll see what we can do. So this is Nearpod. If you have any questions, just visit me at simmonsclassroom.com. You can get me on Twitter at SusieTechIntegrate. You can get that off of my website, or just drop me an email, ssimmons@bonnieeagle.org. Thanks so much.